I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the White House scrambles to clarify President Trump's statements after shocking anti-Semitism in Virginia. Hezbollah threatens to attack Israel's nuclear reactor, and some I.D.F soldiers are on a mission to help people with autism. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. We're still recoiling from the horrific displays of hatred and anti-Semitism that shook the world over the last few days in Virginia. President Trump has been under fire from critics on both sides of the spectrum for failing to properly denounce white nationalism, racism, and anti-Semitism. But now Vice President Pence is coming to his aid by issuing a more specific condemnation of the hate. This is all in the wake of the horrible violence in Charlottesville, the car ramming and helicopter crash that claimed the lives of 2 Virginia troopers and 32-year-old Heather Heyer. White nationalists had gathered in Charlottesville to protest immigration into the United States, waving Nazi flags and chanting anti-Semitic songs. But after the violence erupted, President Trump announced that he was condemning in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. Critics across the spectrum blasted the president for not being specific and for failing to address what many see as a massive spike in racially motivated acts of domestic terror in the United States. Now, Vice President Pence has clarified the White House's position, saying, quote, "We have no tolerance for hate and violence from white supremacists, neo-Nazis, or the KKK. These dangerous fringe groups have no place in American public life and in the American debate, and we condemn them in the strongest possible terms." But still, many aren't satisfied with the ambiguous stances that the Trump administration has taken. Jewish groups are especially blasting Washington for not calling out the Nazi flags and blatant anti-Semitism seen at the rally. And now Israeli Education Minister Naftali Bennett has just called on U.S. leaders to specifically name the issue and address it. New information has come to light that flags the car ramming suspect is a Nazi sympathizer since high school, suggesting this may be a problem with very deep and very disturbing roots. Yesterday was the 11-year anniversary of Israel's second Lebanon war with Hezbollah, a difficult day of remembrance for many. But it doesn't seem to be one for the leader of Hezbollah, who has taken the opportunity to instead threaten Israel and announce further U.S. sanctions against the terror organization. ILTV's Aaron Porras has the story here. Now, should we be worried?
Personally, I don't think we should be worried quite yet, despite mounting tensions on the northern border of Israel with Hezbollah over the last few years and several strikes and kind of this tit-for-tat thing that's been going on between Israel and Hezbollah now for over a decade. You know, it's difficult to take his threats as seriously as they sound when he doesn't even make them to his own people. He said he made these comments safely from a hidden bunker far away from even his own rally.
But I mean, you know, what is being done about these threats? Is there anything that is being done about these threats?
So anything that is said by Hezbollah, any threat that's made against the state, even if it's really out there, is probably taken very seriously and investigated. So a good case in point for that would be previous attacks and threats that Hassan Nasrallah has made against the ammonia tank in Haifa.
Right.
So Israel did a damage assessment. They concluded that should an attack actually take place on the Haifa ammonia tank, the results would be catastrophic. Tens of thousands could die. And the result is we're moving the ammonia tank. So I think that they're going to look at anything that he said very seriously, but you know, we should take everything with a grain of salt and trust in the government to do what they're going to do and protect us.
Appearing on Hezbollah TV to mark the anniversary of the end of the bloody 2006 war, Hezbollah leader Syed Hassan Nasrallah delivered a clear and open threat to the Jewish state, promising a long and brutal war with Hezbollah if Israel decided to escalate tensions any further. But Nasrallah didn't stop there. In light of President Trump's harsh remarks on Hezbollah just last month, when he called the terror group a menace while standing next to the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Nasrallah promised that the United States could do nothing to weaken Hezbollah's strength, and that both Israel and the United States were at his mercy.
وما بدي اروح على الحرب وكلفة الحرب عالية وأعلى بكثير من أي هدف تحققه الحرب، والحرب نذهب إليها في حالة لا خيار. بس بالجلسات المغلقة الأمريكيين والأوروبيين بيقولوا المسؤولين اللبنانيين إذا ما عملتوا هيك إسرائيل حتعمل حرب على لبنان، إذا حزب الله ما سوى هيك إسرائيل حتعمل حرب على لبنان.
Escalations between Israel and Hezbollah have been spiking over the last few months along the South Lebanon border. Nasrallah's speech, which also openly targeted Israel's nuclear reactor in Dimona, makes it clear that Hezbollah is not backing down an inch from its mission to destroy the Jewish state.
Control of the Israeli Air Force has just changed hands from its former commander, Major General Amir Eshel, to the new Air Force commander, Major General Amikam Nolkin. Eshel served for 40 years in the military and for 5 years as Air Force commander before he was honorably discharged and turned over the reins to Norkin last week. So what kind of work does Norkin face ahead? Well, joining us in the studio is Colonel Kobi Regev, a former senior Air Force commander himself, to give us some insight. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's nice being here. Thank you very much.
All right, so you have the scoop on all this. So what are some of the daily challenges that the head of the Israeli Air Force faces on a daily basis?
Well, there are the short-term challenges and the long-term challenges. The most important mission for the Air Force commander is, first of all, make the skies of Israel clean of enemy aircrafts. Right. It's a very intense mission. Many people are involved in it, and he is the responsible for guarding our skies. Having said that, each day we have other kind of challenges.
Right.
We will speak about them later on, but he is also considered to be the commander of the long-range arm of Israel against our major threats.
Interesting. So yeah, and I definitely like to get into that. I mean, but what I would like to know is, what does the Air Force commander essentially have the power to do? Who is he answering to?
He is answering to the Chief of Defense, and through the Chief of Defense to the Minister of Defense of the Israeli government. Mm-hmm. But his real influence is not just concerning the Air Force, because as I told you before, the Air Force is considered to be a very important arm of Israel. Right. And a lot of the decision makers really listen to what the Air Force commander has to say. So his real influence is much more than commanding the Air Force.
Can you kind of give us an example of what that means?
Since the Air Force is doing most of the activity, operational activity, the strategic one, his overview, not about how to do the operation, but what will be the effect. Is it right to do it? From the strategic point of view, is very, very important for the decision making. And my experience that they want to hear him personally giving this overview and what you think about it.
So tell us a little bit about Major General Norkin. Personally, what kind of man is he?
I would like to say, first of all, that in my opinion, he is the right man for the right mission. I know General Norkin for many years. We served together. We are from the same flight course, 113, 32 years ago. I spent more than 4 months with him together in a tent. And
you really get to know a man that way.
Yeah. A very difficult time, and then you see who is the guys that really making the extra mile for you and for the team. And I can tell you that from our perspective as a cadets, we knew. I mean, the question was not if Norkin will be the Air Force commander. The only question was, at what timing will it be?
Right, when?
Because everything he does, also during his service, was in the best way possible. He always asks questions. He always set the vision. He sets the program, and he is really tough on implementing it.
So, you know, well, I want to kind of ask you about how that's going to transition to his actual performance in this position. Now, the Israeli Air Force has been reported to conduct strikes in the Palestinian territories, as well as in Syria and in Lebanon. And mostly this is to stunt the growth of terror groups and their arsenals. During this period that he's transitioning now, and I mean, he's just moved into this position last week, how will this affect Israel's operations, if at all?
I mean, General Norkin bring to his command post 32 years of experience.
Right.
During his service, he served as a commander in the field, as a base commander, squadron commander. He was the head of the operational department of Israel, conducting and planning all of the operation, and most of them are very, very sensitive. So he knows the job, very capable, very smart, and I'm sure that the transition will be very, very smooth. And I also know that General Norkin will also set a new vision for the Air Force. He will gather a team, because he is a man to do everything together with the team, to set a new goal for the Air Force, and I'm quite sure that he will achieve it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Colonel Kobi Regev. And I guess we just have to wait and see what lies ahead, right?
Thank you very much.
Yesterday, we reported on the latest move by the Palestinian Authority to silence critics of its government by arresting journalists and shutting down websites. Well, now it looks like Palestinian citizens are taking to the streets to protest President Abbas's censorship of the press. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's controversial law gives the Palestinian Authority the broad power to close any websites that are critical of Abbas's government, and to jail his critics for up to a full life sentence. Headlines broke when Palestinian security arrested 5 Palestinian journalists affiliated with Hamas, which is Abbas's chief adversary, as well as other journalists linked with Mohammed Dahlan, Abbas's personal political rival. But the PA didn't stop there. They even arrested regular citizens who had voiced dissent on social media, including Imad al-Masri, who had questioned Abbas's sanctions against humanitarian aid in Gaza and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Human rights groups have called this a major step back for freedom in the West Bank, and the citizens of the Palestinian Authority have had it. They're now marching in the streets in protest of the ongoing infringement against free speech, demanding for the release of journalists. These crackdowns have been coming from Palestinian leaders against their own people for years, and it looks like the citizens have finally had enough. Now, here's an interesting story. An Iranian journalist has just found refuge here in Israel after she was issued a death sentence for her journalism work. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with the story. Now, Brett, what exactly happened here?
So this is a journalist named Neda Amin that is from Iran, and she had to flee Iran 3 years ago. And when I say flee, I mean flee for her life, because for working as a journalist, she was under a death sentence for working with the Israeli media. Now, Turkey was they were aiming to deport her earlier this month, but luckily Israel stepped in, and the Ministry of Interior allowed her refuge here in Israel.
Now, it's interesting because there's obviously a lot of layers here, because Iran, Turkey, and Israel clearly all have a lot of differences.
Sure, right, and that's exactly why she was forced to flee in the first place. Neda was doing work for the Persian publication of the Times of Israel, and basically in Iran, any kind of cooperation with Israel is basically asking for a target on the back of your head. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the pictures, and you're just going to see in her face how relieved, how happy she is to be safe and sound in Israel.
Okay, well, I think we're all happy to have her here, right?
Finally, Iranian journalist Neda Amin is safe, but it's been a long journey to get there. After escaping a death sentence in Iran for her journalism work, Neda was facing deportation by Turkey right back into the arms of her pursuers. She had written some columns for the Persian publication of the Israeli daily newspaper Times of Israel, putting her in hot water for collaborating with Israeli media. Things were looking very grim until Israeli Interior Minister Aryeh Deri looked at her case and immediately granted her asylum in the Jewish state. "There's real danger to her life," the minister explained. "I confirmed her entry without hesitation." Israel and Iran, of course, are fierce enemies, but both the Israeli government and the Israeli network of journalists embraced Neda with open arms, helping her finally find asylum in Israel. "I loved Israel since my youth," confessed Neda after she landed in the airport. "I never accepted all the regime's anti-Israel slogans. I always dreamed that I will somehow get to Israel. Well, it may have come under the threat of death, but it looks like this is a dream that has finally come true."
Beautiful. All right, the fight over BDS is reaching a whole new level. The Israeli government is refusing to release a list of the names of individuals who have been barred from entering Israel because they support BDS. And rights groups are filing requests for the release of the blacklist. Earlier this year, the Knesset made a major change to Israel's law of entry by making it legal to deny people into Israel who call for a boycott of the Jewish state. That means anyone who has actively supported or promoted the BDS boycott can be prevented from entering Israel at the airport. Groups are challenging this move and are now demanding that Israel release the blacklist of people who are denied entry into Israel. At first, the Israeli Border Authority denied that there ever was such a list, but after a Freedom of Information request, Israel changed its story, saying that it couldn't release a list because it would be a violation of privacy of those on that list. But the fight is just getting going, with 4 human rights groups now bringing their petition to the Jerusalem District Court, demanding the release of the names. Both the Israeli and the U.S. government have been cracking down on their efforts to fight the BDS movement both in Israel and abroad, and clearly both sides are taking this issue very seriously. A group of Air Force soldiers from the I.D.F's computing unit are lending a big helping hand to people with autism. The group put together a 24-hour hackathon and came up with some amazing apps for both kids and adults to aid with the disorder. The chairman of the OFEC Army unit who organized the hackathon said they saw a glaring lack of options for those suffering from the effects of autism. Until recently, the only treatment available for autistic children and adults in Israel was admission into psychiatric hospitals. But the tight 24-hour rules of the hackathon created the perfect atmosphere for innovators to put their heads together and come up with some unique solutions. One of the event's best inventions is a new app designed to help with the blank facial expression issue. People with autism tend to have trouble expressing their emotions through their face, leaving them with a blank expression that makes it difficult for others to read. But this new app instructs users to imitate the facial expressions that they see, a smiling face if you're happy, for example, to help them communicate their feelings visually. Another app helps with navigation and creates a custom GPS service for people with autism who tend to be overwhelmed with conventional maps or directions. A third app helps people with autism maintain eye contact with people they're speaking to, creating a camera-like device which monitors and then corrects users' eye contact. The Army says this is the first of many projects like this to come, which means even more Israeli innovations for disabilities are on the way. With smartphones taking over our life, sometimes it feels like we've forgotten how to enjoy a good book. I mean, what happened to actually reading? Well, joining me in the studio is Merav Michelson, the CEO of Scooby, and she's here to tell us about her new platform and how it's going to revolutionize the reading experience. Revolutionize the reading experience. It's a lot of R's. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, what is Scooby?
Well, Scooby is a different approach to reading. The problem today is that we don't have time and we don't have focus to dive into a book. And what we try to do with Scooby is approach it in a different way and giving the reader a more multidimensional, engaging experience. And we do this by addressing the content on the way we are used to use phones today. So if it's with short text and visual and audio, but they're supposed to be something that's added. They're not supposed to block our imagination. We're supposed to leave things for imagination by reading, actually. So this is basically a platform for stories, and what we added is a tool for writers that allows them to create these stories or adapt their existing stories to this platform, and thus creating for them a bigger audience.
Interesting. Okay, sorry, so this is a little confusing to me. So basically, it goes beyond reading. You can read the writing of other people who are part of this platform, is what you're saying?
Yes, you can write a story for this platform, and if you want to read it, you download the story to your phone, and then if you have just 5 minutes between meetings or 5 minutes here and there on the bus or on the train or something, you can immediately dive into a story, and you don't say, well, I don't remember what I was reading and where was I in the story. We're making stories easy and accessible.
Interesting. So what inspired this idea?
Well, basically it was that I don't have time, and I used to read a lot of books, and now it's only reserved for vacation. And I saw that every time I look at the phone, because I'm looking for something to do for 5 minutes, I find myself on some kind of game or Candy Crush or something like that. And I wanted something a little bit more meaningful for me.
Interesting.
So I went to something I like, books.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, I think that I know that I'm always saying I don't have enough time to read books. Like, when am I going to fit this in between my busy schedule? So I think this is something that would definitely target that typical individual who just can't seem to find the time. Now, when and First of all, is the app already available? And if not, when will it be available?
Well, we just finished a 4-month amazing program with Start Ono and the Kiryat Academic.
Okay.
And so this was an accelerator program, and we won in the demo day contest, so that was really exciting. And now we're going for beta testing in 2 months. And that's to aim to launch the product in the US by the end of December.
Beautiful.
In the stores.
All right, well, it seems like, listen, you've created something here that I think a lot of people can appreciate and should probably use. But thank you so much for coming in, and we'll just see where it goes, right?
Thank you.
All right, it looks like the NBA is bringing it to the hoop on this one. That's right, the National Basketball Association is coming to the Holy Land, and they're hoping to recruit Israeli players for one of the world's biggest sports. The NBA has been touring its Basketball Without Borders program all over the world since 2001. But this is the first time the NBA is bringing it to Israel. The program involves training with some of the world's top b-ball players and coaches, which means young local Israelis will get to go head-to-head with Hall of Famer David Robinson and Israel's own Omri Caspi from the Golden State Warriors. This is a major shot for young, talented Israeli ballers to show their stuff and grow their skills on the court, and hopefully earn their way into a pro deal with the NBA. But Basketball Without Borders is also about culturally expanding the world through basketball, which is why this year they're hosting clinics all over Israel, combining Jews, Muslims, Christians, and Druze. Palestinian children from the West Bank will also be invited to participate, sharing the court alongside Israeli players. Who knows who the next breakout star of basketball will be? Well, the hits from Israel just keep on coming. Netflix has just announced the release of 2 new series that have been developed by the creators of the hit Israeli show Fauda. It looks like Netflix just can't get enough of Israeli stories and Israeli storytellers. Lior Raz and Avi Issacharov's series Fauda was a smash hit for Israeli audiences when it premiered back in 2015. The two created the story together, a political thriller based on their own experiences serving in a special forces unit of the I.D.F. The series went on to win 6 Ophir Awards in 2016, which are the equivalents of an Israeli Emmy. And that ended up attracting Netflix to buy the series and then distribute it for audiences all over the world. So if you haven't seen it, trust me, it's binge-worthy. Season 2 of Fauda is filming right now here in Israel, but it looks like the two creators have kept plenty busy. Netflix has just announced 2 new series from the Israeli showrunners. One is based on true-life accounts of Mossad and CIA agents tracking down terrorists, and the other is an original thriller revolving around a tragic hit and run. Netflix vice president says Lior and Avi are excellent storytellers and that Netflix is proud to expand their relationship with them. Their first new show is already set to launch on Netflix next year, with the other wrapping up development before filming. So rejoice, Fauda fans, we won't have to wait long for brand new shows from our favorite creators.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
Well, we just talked about 2 new Israeli TV series coming to Netflix. So speaking about TV binging, today's word of the day is sidra, which means a TV series in Hebrew. Okay, we all have our favorite sidra or TV series, and we're all a little guilty of over-binging a sidra or maybe even a few sderot or TV series on the weekends. The vote's a little split when it comes to the best sidra of all time. Fans of The Sopranos and The Wire, I'll leave the debate to you. But how about a guilty pleasure sidra? Well, I'm not ashamed to say it, I love me some Grey's Anatomy. And okay, maybe that one sidra about a certain fresh prince of a town called Bel Air. Ugh, I miss the 90s.
The weather is brought to you by international singer-songwriter Sabina. Make sure to check out her latest album, Purple Ribbons, and get updated for upcoming concerts.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy with a low of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow will also be partly cloudy and is expected to have both a drop in temperatures and a decreased risk of heat stress. The high will be around 87 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.